Hi everyone, I hope you're good guys. Today new video where I'm gonna explain how I made my template Industrial Techno 2, my Ableton template. I've created this template during the live stream session and I tried to recreate kind of similar vibe to MORD record or PERC TRAX. So let's have a listen first. How does it sound? So you get an idea more or less how does it sound. Today we're gonna focus more on each part, how I made each part, and next week we're gonna focus more on the arrangement. So first, as you can see, there is not that many tracks. I really wanted to keep it simple and didn't want it to overcomplicate things, and I will explain you later why. So let's start with the kick. So for the kick, I actually use my rack Industrial kick. I will put the link in the description if you're not familiar with. And what I've done here is there was this kick that I resampled. So originally in the live stream, I kind of take this kick, which was pretty like a clean kick, let's say, but I still wanted to make something very distorted. I had in my mind the kick very distorted, and I know that if I pick up a kick with a nice low end and very clean at the beginning, even if I add distortion and everything, it will sound still good. So basically I had this kick and I had saturation pedal and another saturation. So that was the original kick, and if you see saturator in out curve, I really like the out curve mode for all this kind of industrial sound. It's kind of very brutal saturation, even though after you can play with the dry wet to don't affect too much the kick, but then you have a little bit of pedal and another saturator with out curve. So the thing is, here there is no like secret recipe, you know, it's all the time the kick is always about experimenting with compression, saturation, EQ and stuff like that. So that's why it's like sounding. I could have get rid maybe of the pedal, but kind of keep this a little bit this heavy stuff. And because I wanted to use my industrial rack, I have to record this kick, and that's why I have this file here, which is renamed like this. To sound similar, because for this rack I couldn't just drop the kick there. I needed like to have an audio sample to make it things easier. And so what I've done, I'm gonna delete everything here and I'm gonna go to the kick, and so here is the effect chain. I'm just gonna remove everything. Alright, so first you have the kick, which is like this, and so I had the corpus just like, I don't know if you're familiar with the airbase from Wave, but it's kind of a resonator and it's alright. So that's the kick, and you see it's really adding nice low end. So just have to be careful with the dry wet, because you can quickly have too much low frequency and get rid of the high frequency and then losing transient and clarity in your kick. Then it's just EQ to. I had a nasty frequency here. You cannot hear it on the headphone, you need to listen on the speaker to see. And then an extra saturation. And then limiter. So basically for this kick, I use kind of layering. I usually do that beforehand. Usually I'm just dropping a kick, but for this one, because I start with a soft kick that I add distortion a lot, I feel it like to add a bit extra character by adding percussion. Sorry, so I add, this is percussion that I pitch down -12 You see, it was like this, and I pitched down. And that's the other. It's just more like for the a kind of click, if you can say so, like just for the top end. And so together, see, it's adding this click click on the top, which is really nice, and help the kick after to cut through. It's very subtle, but it's really hard. So usually I've designed a kick like a kick. So I've designed a kick rack where I can create the kick and layer like this, and I have a sample selector. So I will put the link in the description. You can check. It's easy way to create your own kick with layer. All right, now let's go back there. So you can see in this kick you have a bit of rumble. So the rumble is here. I deactivated it before, but here you've got this, which is gonna be like the bass, the groove of the track, and this rumble. And I think I use this track, but I modify a little bit, especially the pre-delay. Usually it's around 5 milliseconds, and you see you get this classic rumble effect. But if you put it around 100 milliseconds, you get this offbeat kind of effect, and it's really nice with the kick. Sorry. And I probably have a little bit more decay as well to make it like more like a bass line, a bit longer. I put a little bit of frequency up to avoid to be too rumbly. See, here it's very rumbly, which is work as well, but I wanted to get this very nasty effect. Then the other one, we have the reverb top. So this one, you see, it's just, this is just to make your kick a little bit less dry and kind of give a little bit of space in the mix about your kick. So you have to be very gentle about that. And it's as well helping to cut through the mix a little bit more by adding a little bit of top end. And then the next part that I've added is the off-PERC bit that you can hear. So yeah, basically it's adding as well this percussion of bit. So you see, as I told you, there is only 9 tracks there, but for example, just with this kick, you have the kick, you have the rumble, which is acting like a bass line, and you have even an extra PERC loop with this chain here. So you've got already 3 tracks in 1 track. And then goes the same for the hats, which is basically a 1 track, but you have 3 different kind of hats. You have the close hi-hat, open hi-hat, and the ride. And the close hi-hat, it's simple pattern, is 16 close hi-hat. And I just, in terms of effects, I use my character rack, and the main thing is the crush. It's like bit crushing, which kind of gives a low quality kind of sound and a bit of reverb and bright. And I will put the link in the description of this rack as well if you want to go to check it. Nothing special except then you have open hi-hats. Same, the pattern is like you've got this kind of 2 low note and then the one off beat very strong to give this driving effect. And same here, you have some crush, which is giving mainly this distorted effect. So the thing is, with that, it's important to EQ after all, because of the bit reduction. You've got a lot of noise, and you see a nice EQ to cut a little bit everything, clarify your hats. It's important. And then the last one is the ride. You can find here. Same, a little bit of bit reduction, like to make it a little bit, to make it less clean, a bit more noisier. Saturation, just to make it louder. Low cut, reverb, sidechain compression, and this is just like a stereo delay. Alright, and then as overall effect, I just had the drum bass just to add a little bit more of transient. Just like kind of, yeah, add a bit of transient, a bit of saturation, There is no compression or whatsoever, but and I don't know, it's just gluing a little bit as well, everything. Like making everything more like a whole one stuff rather than 3 different hats. Then the next track, it's snare. So for the snare, I layer on 2 sample to get, I deactivated the effects before to get something like this. So it's basically, up here there is effect, so let me go there. Oops. So let me go there. So you have this more like top snare, noisy snare, like kind of 909, 808 snare. And you have this, which is more like a percussion. You see, I think this I recorded was like a slamming a door that I pitched down. And together you get this. So it sounds a bit very weak, obviously, but I needed something like this to then after put effect and make it, bringing it to another dimension. So a little bit of EQ to make everything sound great, and then I have this Industrial FX rack, so it's gonna be a huge difference. So basically you got this pitch effect here. So it was sounding good like this as well, but I prefer it like this, and you have saturation adding a little bit of punch and brightness and fuzz to get really this industrial noisy effect, and then a bit of delay and reverb, and you got this nice sounding kick snare with working well together. Then you have the ride noise. So this is, I already had the ride, but I wanted to add a more kind of noisy ride to just add a bit of variation. So that sounded like this originally, but first I made it brighter, then I used saturator to make it noisier, and then I wanted to cut everything out from it. Because obviously if you leave like this, it's taking all of the spectrum and it's gonna fuck up your mix, rather than if you add a little bit of EQ, smoothing out the thing, and making it mono, because I already have the ride here in the stereo, so there's no point to keep it stereo, it's just mess everything. Then we have this PERC, which is basically originally a loop from my sample pack. Alright, so it's loop like this, but obviously I transform it, and first adding pedal. This pedal plug from Ableton is really nice. Whenever you want to add like industrial kind of tone, it's really... So you see you get a nice crunchier effect. And here's the same. I'm gonna add saturation over there, and fuzz is the same than the pedal more or less. So again, saturation to get a little bit more harmonics and brightness, and fuzz to accentuate the industrial effects, and then a bit of delay to kind of give another kind of groove to the, accentuate the groove to the loop. So you already get something completely different than the original. And then I add this track where it's just like to make everything clear, and because obviously like I said before, here is like very noisy, taking a lot of space in the spectrum, and you need to cut things because otherwise everything will be too messy. So that's why Bright Key is good for that. This is kind of resonator, and I have this preset, and you can copy, and when you use a little bit, it's really nice to make things a little bit brighter, cut the low a little bit, and then saturation. Add a little bit of great harmonics. Okay, harmonic to get rid of all of EQ, sorry, to get rid of all of the low frequency I don't need. Remove what I don't need as well here, and boosting a little bit there. And then just the sidechain, obviously. And then I bring everything in mono. When it's too wide, it's just doesn't sound nice. I don't know, for me it sounds weird. I really like this kind of PERC, very mono. And then finally EQ to just put it in the mix like at its right place. And yeah, in mono, yeah, just to let space for the rest of the element. As I say, it's like a lot of elements are very noisy and very, so you really have to be careful where you put what, because otherwise it's just everything messy. Alright, then let's jump to PERC 2. And so PERC 2 and PERC 3 is different kind of PERC. It's basically I use a sample and I made a loop out of it, but it's more like one-shot percussive sound deep in a lot of reverb and delay. So you see it's that bright key again to make things a little bit brighter. EQ8. And then after finally as well, this industrial synth FX to make it sound industrial, and all the delay and reverb as well to make it this very wide space. So yeah, very important, this parameter. I probably from this one probably differ a little bit from the original. I probably put a longer decay of the reverb, because usually in the original rack is more like I think around 1 or 2 seconds. Here is 21, because I really want this like long tail kind of effect. And yeah, you got this. And the PERC 3 is working similar. It's just this to get rid of frequency I don't need. Same kind of. Here I even pitch down, so you can see that was the original. And same, a lot of saturation and first distortion to make it noisier, crunchier, very industrial. Same, long delay, long reverb to get this kind of, yeah, warehouse effect. But same as usual, I need very strong EQ to get rid of everything I don't need. So yeah, and then sidechain. So yeah, together. And same here, this one is kind of responding to this one. They are both like kind of in the ping pong responding to each other. And with the snare who come accentuate this groovy stuff, but I'll come back to this later. And then finally the last track is the lead, and is the one and only one lead of the track. So to create this during the live stream, I didn't know if I wanted something more percussive or something more like a synth. I needed this one. It's kind of in the middle, so I use my rack modular synth, which is kind of trying to use FM modulation to kind of get this kind of very techno-ish sounds. Obviously, without any effect, it's very weird, and especially here the filter is down. But you see, you get this kind of very kind of FM sound, a little bit sounding like a bell, but very metallic kind of sound. So I just play with the macro to create the sound. If you're not aware of this rack, I will put the link in the description. And then same, this industrial effect source. Obviously, when you bring delay reverb, the sound takes another dimension. Saturation, a little bit. And then a bit of overdrive to make things a little bit more crunchier. Obviously sidechain. And yes, always with the EQ was like quite challenging, but trying to make it sound fit in the mix. And I was thinking first to remove low frequency, but when I remove low frequency, was not sounding that. Was kind of sounding empty. So that's for usually I always cut everything, but for this one, I don't know, removing the frequency was like getting away something from the original sound and like removing something from the overall glue or creation of the track. So that's why I left. You see all this frequency here that I supposedly no need, but I leave them because they are not really disturbing that much, and if I remove them I feel like it's missing something, so that's why I left them. And then you have just on the mix down a low cut that will come back later in the arrangement track, and yeah, and that's it. After all the rest is about the arrangement. So not that much element, but very noisy elements. So like I said, you have to be careful because you can really get something messy, and like your tracks still need to breathe a little bit, like each element have its room in the space, you know, like don't feel like everything overwhelming everything, you know, especially with this kind of noisy stuff. You got the impression it's kind of one and unique big sound noisy mess around. So I was trying to avoid that, and that's why I've select just a few tracks and I try to make them fit well, and that's why I've been a little bit like harsh on the EQ, like a little bit more surgical and brutal than usually what I'm doing because of that. Alright, thank you very much for watching, Sky, and see you next week for the arrangement part, or I will explain a little bit how I build the stuff and a little bit about the mixing, even if I already had to talk a little bit about, and as well as the master with the master. Thank you, bye bye.